Hello, and welcome to the We're Not Stumped podcast. I'm your host, Mike Bolland, and I'm a congenital amputee of the right hand. In this show, I will interview other amputees and allow them to tell you their incredible life stories. I'll also feature family members of amputees and others who support the amputee community, all in an effort to discuss the challenges and triumphs of those living with limb loss. So stick around and listen to inspirational stories and find out why we say, we're not stumped. Well, hello, everyone. Welcome to the We're Not Stumped podcast. I'm your host, Mike Bolland, and today I welcome Chris and Kim Casteel. An event at age 24 changed the direction of Chris's life. When speaking of the event, Chris said, "One minute, I was a man living in the auto industry, and the next day, I was disabled, unemployed, and now I had to ask for help." Well, you flash forward to today. Chris and his wife, Kim, now own a company called ANew Life, where they are helping other people. So first of all, Chris and Kim, thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to be on the We're Not Stumped podcast.
Thanks so much for having us.
Absolutely. Thanks for letting us be with you.
I'm excited because you know both ends of the spectrum when it comes to prosthetics and being in limb loss. So I really appreciate that. We always start the podcast with a segment I call In Your Own Words. So I love to hear the story of your event and your business and all that.
You know, I don't even know where to begin. There's so much to go through. So I guess a quick thing is life's changed so quickly, especially from limb loss. And from there, you know, how you take that next step or where you go from there really is what all limb loss is about. It's the life you live afterwards.
You know, just to give you some history, Chris was in a motorcycle accident. A car came across the center line and hit him head on, and he went through their windshield. And luckily, Harley Ryder, who was an off-duty Washington County Sheriff's deputy, happened to be coming by on his Harley Davidson, on his Yamaha. Honda.
Only rode Honda. Right.
And grabbed his femoral artery and kept him alive. So
wow.
This is, he knew after that point now in the future what he wants to do to help people. That was kind of a precipice for a change, but that was 11 months after we were married. So we both had a quick change in life and grew up rather quickly because I was 21 and Chris was 24.
Wow. So it sounded like not only was it your leg, but very quite possibly you could have died from your injuries. Is that correct?
Literally, I think Kim was told to prepare for the worst. I luckily didn't pass away, but I never saw Harley Ryder. I had bled enough out that I was unconscious at that time. Between him and the people at the university hospital, they saved my life. Literally, I'm just lucky the right guy came along at the right time, and the right crew were there standing by to put me back together.
And there was no amputee support group at the time. I was wheeling Chris from room to room. Literally, he still had the last shards in his face from the windshield. And Chris said, "I want to talk to people." And so I think that's where he got his counseling from, just during that time, because I was wheeling him from room to room to talk to other amputees. And there was many amputees at that time, amazingly, at U of M Hospital in the ICU.
It was that particular year. Actually, that there was a series of years where there was a great number of motorcycle deaths and injuries. I'm not sure if it was, from 1984 to 1989 in the southeastern Michigan, there was tons of motorcycle accidents, and I'm not sure if it was, distracted driving before they called that, or we were a little more reckless at that time. Being young and invincible.
Oh, sure.
But for the counseling stage, after I got out of ICU, I had some serious injuries to my residual limb. Was basically they put my femur back together, and while I was recovering, I realized it helped me to talk to others.
And that was the start of what you're doing now, to a certain extent.
Yes, I mean, yeah. So literally. At the time, the hospital didn't have a support group. Fast forward, literally almost 20 years later, I ended up taking a job at the University of Michigan, and they still didn't have a support group. And through I was there for 6.5 years while I was getting my master's degree. following being laid off in the auto industry. But the Debtor Foundation, they came up with some grant money to actually hire an individual to help people transition. And it was the first in the country, and I believe it's a model that's being used in at least a couple other places continuously now. And that was almost 20 years ago, yeah.
Now, with your career in the auto industry, was it something, is it because you suddenly were in the limb loss community that maybe you had to look for another job? If you don't mind me asking that question.
I was in the auto industry, and at the time, especially in southeastern Michigan, the big three are here. It was really the place to be employed and the most gainful employment. So even after I lost my leg, I ended up going back into the auto industry after some training and kind of getting myself back on my feet. But when literally it came out to was it 2002? The car company, the country basically crashed following the 9/11. At that point, I was a plant manager, and I was literally, talking with the presidents. Do we cut our people loose? Do we keep them here? And literally, that was 2001, 2002. I was laid off, and looking back at it, we decided that we no longer wanted to. I didn't want to be in the car industry any longer. I ended up taking an entry-level job as a prosthetic technician at the University of Michigan Hospital, and that's where I learned how to make, take all my engineering and background to make artificial limbs.
And I think another, wanted to bring this up too, is when Chris was applying for jobs when he left, when he was laid off, there was a lot of discrimination against amputees. And Chris, as soon as he would walk upstairs, they would see he had a prosthetic, and then he wouldn't get a call back. And that happened many times. So that's really when we wanted to help other amputees, because we knew that there was this discrimination, sometimes blatant, sometimes hidden, but there was many companies that were involved with that.
Yeah,
it's terrible.
Well, that's a shared experience. I know exactly where you're coming from on that. I remember trying to get my first job back in the day, and it was very difficult. So there's people that are in different parts of their own journey that are going to be listening to this podcast. So what was it like for you to wake up? First of all, did you understand what had happened? And then when you did understand you're an amputee, what were some of the thoughts that were racing through your mind?
Oh, so I remember the initial thought was, I remember waking up and just terrible taste in my mouth, and realizing that there was something in between my lip and my gum. And I remember peeling up there, and it was a piece of safety glass. And this was like 3 days after the accident.
Wow.
And it just like, I haven't brushed my teeth in 3 days. But I remember looking down, and they had an external fixator on my left femur. So there's basically rod and pins holding my leg together, and there's nothing below it. And then being told that I no longer had a limb. And then I remember just kind of fading out, and woke up and did that over and over again for a couple of days. And then once the drugs started to settle down a little bit, the pain was okay. And I realized, okay, life has changed. A lot of if I'd done something differently, had I waited at a light, if I'd done, would I, could have, should have, I questioned myself. I questioned others. I questioned religion. God, why did you do this to me? So many things ran through my mind. And then it took some time to kind of get past where I was at that minute, and how all of a sudden we started thinking about what's next. My wife realized I was afraid she was going to leave me. I actually at one point told her to leave me. She shouldn't have to deal with somebody like me, in my mode of self-pity. And I realized, hold it, she's here for the long haul. She told me that. And that really got me thinking about what's next. Subconsciously, I don't think about it, but it's a time that I realized I need to refocus and kind of push some of this back and help the people around me that need it.
I have a question. I'm going to jump ahead a little bit, because one of the things you do now, you founded an organization called, or a company called ANew Life, Prosthetics and Orthotics. If I'm saying that correctly, I want to make sure I'm saying it correctly.
Orthotics.
Orthotics. Yeah, I knew I messed that up. So thank you. But as you told that story, I'm thinking to myself, you have patients that are going through the same thing. How are you able to help them go through the same experiences that you went through yourself?
So I'm an amputee Polish in America certified peer visitor. So I've gone through training with the ACA. They were instrumental in kind of helping me early on to get the support group going. What that does is it allows individuals that have kind of gone through the process, that have been trained on some basic counseling. It helps them to help people in similar circumstances go through that. Anytime I go into the room, I always make sure that I have enough time, that I've put my stuff on hold, so I'm not thinking about that when somebody's talking to me. And I just try to get people to first see where they're at, and then how can I get them to start to think about their future and put this behind them. I just counseled a young man that was in a motorcycle accident by distracted driving earlier this week. He seems to be doing pretty good. I'm sure he's going to have a great full recovery. Unfortunately, one of our dear friends' sons was involved in a tragic accident. I think he's just going home today. I'll probably be talking to him, if not this weekend, early next week, and trying to help him through the process. If the weight of these counseling sessions are too much, I also seek professional help. And I encourage those. There's nothing wrong with crying, nothing wrong at all with that. But if it affects your life, it's time. It's good to talk to friends and family, but counselors, but to seek the assistance you need to unweigh yourself of some of these tragic incidents.
That's absolutely great advice. Thank you for sharing that. One of the reason why I'm glad you were both on too, because there's a part of the story that sometimes doesn't get talked about enough, and that could be the caregiver role. So when I think of your journey, Kim, what was that like from your perspective?
Well, luckily, my mother was an entrepreneur. And so she was very detailed and very assertive. And so I had checklists for doctors every day. I would chase them down the hallway. I would be an advocate for myself because I knew the doctors would brush me off in the residences. They wouldn't answer questions. So for me, I think it was easier for me. And like I said, we were just married 11 months. So I had our wedding party. People were still here from out of state. So I had a good community and a good support staff with me that could assist me. But I think you have to be your own best advocate, and you have to work as a team. Especially even if you're married, not married, if it's a sibling, you have to work together as a team, because the doctors aren't always so understanding of what you're going through. So you really need to advocate for that person. And so that's my advice, is research and advocate and have a good support system, because you're going to cry, you're going to be angry, you're going to be sad, you're going through all the emotions that he's going through, but you can't go back to them because they are going through something so difficult. And so you're learning together. So I also went to counseling. We can't advocate counseling enough. And just work as a team. You really need to find that support that you need at the time.
Well, as you were working as a team, and I know, Chris, you said you were, I think, an intern at a prosthetic shop. What made you come up with the idea to start a company in that field?
All right. So I was a new technician. I'm making products. I'm learning these processes that I don't understand fully what they're meant to do. And there was a little kid. I'm gonna say he can't be more than 7. He comes in. He's an above knee cancer patient. He's on crutches, and I mean, he's just full of energy. He's just running around on these crutches. I, with the prosthetist that I was working with, basically created a prosthetic leg for him. So this little tiny leg. a knee and a foot, and the kid puts his I'm gonna cry again because this is what sold me. This kid puts his leg on, takes a few steps, he crashes, everybody's concerned, he hops back up, and in the next few minutes, he's running down the hallway. And I'm crying like a baby. Parents are crying, the orthotist or the prosthetist is crying. The kids just enjoy, and I do right then. I told her that night, this is what I want to do. And so that led my journey to getting a master's degree in orthotics and prosthetics, doing my residencies, and literally in my education for the master's degree, I created a company called ANew Life, and that was my model for ANew Life. It was recommended later that you get a higher alphabet number or letter, and you'll show up sooner in the search listings. And so we thought that ANew was a great way to start.
Oh, it's a great name. And back in the day, it would be always good for the yellow pages if anyone can remember that far back, who knows? And I want to say your website's URL. It's ANew Life PNDO. ANew Life Pando, basically. Yeah, I want to make sure we get that out there for the people that are listening. I'll have it in all the descriptions and everything like that, but I want to make sure that I get it out there in the middle here. So matter of fact, if you want to just put this on hold and go check out his website, please go do that. So what was it like to start a business? I mean, that's a whole new journey. I mean, we talk about the amputee journey, the prosthetic journey. Now you're on an entrepreneurial journey. What is that like?
Oh, so, there's this naive thought that, hey, I know what I can do now. I can make these legs. I can fit them, or I've got a pretty good understanding how to fit them. And then the business side of it comes up, the insurance side.
Yeah, we actually tried to purchase a company. We found out they were committing Medicare fraud.
Oh, wow.
So we turned them in, and they had a flood. Conveniently, all the records were gone.
Oh, whoops.
Yeah.
So luckily, I'm still at the same firm. I also work at a law firm in elder law, in addition to being a co-owner here. But I literally threw together our LLC. Got the guys were working out of their cars at the time. A friend we were using his space in Brighton to do the fabrication.
The guy that made my first leg basically took us under his wing.
Oh, wow.
And allowed us to basically work with him until we got up and going. A year later, we were able to buy our building.
Yeah, so we had searched here for a while. The city of Detroit was amazing. 13 years ago, they helped us look for many buildings. We were bidding against Dan Gobert because he was buying the city at the time, which we didn't know many years ago. But we found this wonderful old bank building that we could do manufacturing in, and got the certifications. We had to spend a little bit more on a handicapped ramp that we did $30,000 instead of $3 million. And the city declared bankruptcy the year we started. The Affordable Care Act went into play the same year we started. So it was a very difficult start.
Yeah.
We started, but we figured if we can make it through all that, we made it through his accident, which is, fairly substantial thing to go through. But now that we made through that, we figured, well, everything else we can push through, because we made it through that time.
And now how long have you been in business now?
12 years.
12 years. That's fantastic. I want to read a review because you guys got glowing reviews, and I want to read this review and get your thoughts on it. ANew Life does business right. Every patient is taken care of and treated like a priority that they are. Every employee is knowledgeable, and this experience is reflected in the great service they provide. What does that feel like to hear and see the reviews you get, thinking about the fun times?
It's heartwarming.
I can't do that, but go ahead. Yeah. I love it. It's just amazing because I read your reviews and you're making an impact on the community. And I would imagine that was one of the goals that you had set for yourself when you started the journey. Is that correct?
Absolutely. When we started, I wanted to have a practice that I would come to, know that I would be taken care of. The opposite, the downside to it from a business owner now is people get used to you taking care of them in such a boutique way, and then they become so expecting of it that they just show up. sometimes they won't call and make appointments or something like that. And then all of a sudden, hey, we're triple booked now. We can't, we're going to have to wait now or something like that. And they get a little upset, but it's like, we make every individual patient feel like they might be our only patient. And sometimes that's at a detriment. But for the most part, our patients have been great, communicate well. They show up for their appointments. If they need a delay, they'll let us know. And these are all things that it works both ways, and it helps us through the process.
Yeah, we don't allocate time for our patients. We have a kind of a set schedule, but we don't. It's not a 15-minute allotment or a half hour. We let the practitioner figure out how much time he needs when he sets the appointment. And I think that's why we have a 97% customer satisfaction rating, which have for many years, because during COVID, we lost many patients, which were like family. Our patients are family, and many of them with us when Chris was in his residency. So it was horrible during that time, but they're family to us. We treat them with respect, and they treat us with the mutual respect.
Yeah,
go ahead.
Yeah, even when we have to talk about the financial side of it, and the best and the worst part is we have insurance to cover these things, but a lot of times these insurance plans are so convoluted that they don't understand co-pays, deductibles, or spend downs. And then we try everything we can to make sure people understand the financial responsibility up front, but every now and then there's a surprise. And even we try to avoid the surprises, but somebody will have a $10,000 spend down, or they have like a 30% deductible or a copay. And just when you're talking to somebody, they'll, I need this leg, and I'm like, yeah, I absolutely want to give it to you, but hey, insurance is going to require you to pay this amount of money. And needless to say, we have become a little bit of a bank, because we'll do whatever we can do to make sure those people get what they need. And we can't write things off, because if you write that off, it's considered insurance fraud. Wow. And so, we can't put ourselves in jeopardy to say, oh, we can do it that way. But even if we could afford to do it, we can't do it that way. And a lot of times our profit is actually built into those copays and deductibles. So that's what keeps our lights on and our people paid.
Yeah, luckily we work with some foundations and some state agencies that have been very helpful. And as long as people are willing to work with us, we'll advocate that, put all that on our website, because we want to help someone get back to their regular daily activities. We know how important that is for the community and for everyone. So we try to help them. I know that we're the face of the insurance company, and we explained their policy to them. So that's, again, why it takes a little bit longer. We spend the time.
Is that one of the most difficult parts of the job, of what you do, is the insurance part?
That is the absolute worst. So we can see somebody, we can make a leg and literally a prosthesis from start to finish within a week. Insurance blows this thing out to, it can turn into a month, between the times we have to get all the documentation, the prior authorizations, and we don't buy things until we got that, because otherwise we get stuck with it.
Yeah.
So it's not uncommon for a prior authorization to take a week or two. If a doctor sees somebody but they don't do their notes for a week or two, these are all things, let alone we have to do our evaluations and have our notes done too. So sometimes that can take a week. All of a sudden that adds up, and now it's 6 weeks from the time you saw it, and then, hey, what's going on? I need my leg, or I need whatever. That the insurance side, the regulation side, like having to log into a website every couple. I think the Medicare side, I have to log into every 20 days. If I don't log into it, even though I'm not using it because other people are using within the organization, I'm the authorized official, and if I get locked out, it shuts our billing down.
Wow.
Things that are supposed to fraud, but all it really does is it impacts the small practices like us. The big crooks are still going to be crooks, and they're always going to find a way.
Yeah, I think post-COVID too, insurance companies, there was a lot of new hires. So we're having issues with insurance companies losing paperwork or wrongfully denying a claim. So then they put it out another 30 days or 60 days, and we won't get paid for 90 days. So luckily we have great vendors that are willing to work with us, because they know in the industry. So it's a constant battle, and I'm the one that usually rings the insurance company's phone constantly asking for payment. And that's the not fun part of our job. Right. I think the 3D scanning and printing we both enjoy. We're both technology geeks.
Yeah.
So that Chris can make a prosthetic very quickly. It's just the insurance part of it.
Has that changed over time? So in other words, when you went through your own prosthetic journey to when you opened up your new facility to today, has it gotten better or worse within the insurance and the paperwork part?
Insurance has gotten far worse. Far worse. The delay tax has become almost standard procedure now.
Many mergers.
Well, there are too many companies that have become monopolized and basically siloed. There's been some instances where people have gotten hacked, and it's impacted the entire. We're not even in network with one of these large companies, but there was a piece that literally everyone else was going through. It affected our ability to bill and take care of patients for several weeks. Wow. I personally don't believe that healthcare is an investment portfolio. It should not be an investment portfolio. Healthcare shouldn't be profit driven. I understand that we have to make money, we have to do things like that, but there are so many middlemen getting in the middle of patient care now, between third-party administrators, all these other healthcare advantage plans and things like that are actually they're taking money from the provider, and they're taking money from the people that are paying the monthly payments to them. And you've never heard of an insurance company going broke. They've always got record profits, profit sharing, bonuses for their upper management. Personally, I'm not a socialist, but I think that there should be a little bit more of a socialized medicine plan.
Everyone should be entitled to health care.
Yeah. I don't disagree at all. Thank you for that explanation, because it's been, I was telling you earlier, many years since I wore my prosthetics, that are back there. So some of these things I don't know. So being able to share it and with people that are listening to the podcast is very important to me. But also important to me, in talking about the time since you went through your own journey till today, prosthetics themselves have changed quite a bit. What have you seen in the industry as far as the improvements and other things that I may not be aware of?
Technology is moving so fast. Like Kim had said earlier, we're technology geeks. We've tried to be early adopters on many things. We've been doing digital scanning now for about 6 years, 3D printing, outsourcing for probably about 4 years, 4.5, 5 years, something like that. Right after we got into the digital scanning part of it, we were outsourcing it. Then we were able to do internal 3D printing.
Oh, nice.
The componentry, the electronic componentry has gotten smaller and stronger, faster. I have a new prosthetic knee that's new to the United States from the Netherlands that has a powered extension. So when I'm seated, when I stand up, it will help lift me, and it has 85 Newton meters of force, which is significant in standing up. When I walk, it has a powered extension, and it knows where it is in space, whether it's going up a hill or down a hill, and kind of adjust for that. The technology is amazing. The app with it tells me that on average I do about a little over 7,000 steps a day. How many times I sit and stand, how many stairs I climb. So that portion of it. Control systems on how to make these devices work have really come a long way. On upper extremity prostheses, the myoelectrics used to have a single location, and you pretended you were going to open or close your wrist to open or close them. Very, very hard to get the right spot. If you sweat or anything like that. New control systems basically have a band that goes around it, or a liner that goes on, and the controls have gotten so much better. Unfortunately, insurance is always lagging. Most things have to go through Medicare for it's called a PDAC approval. Basically, it says that it is assigned a billing code and an amount. So you have these great devices, but it takes a while for the invention to get there. Then for it to get a code before it can go into mass production and have the price comes down where the average person can afford it.
Yeah, we're paid on delivery. We're not like doctors, standard doctors. We're only paid when we deliver a device. So it's a lot different for us. That's why you'll see some large companies that they have 15-minute patient appointments because you have to get a lot of patients through based on that. But yeah, just getting paid on delivery definitely is a different type of billing.
Yeah.
No, absolutely. That's something that I wasn't aware of until I started doing interviews like this. Paid on delivery means you put the investment into the time, whether it be to make the product or visit with the person. And until you deliver it, you don't get paid. That's got to be a very difficult. And again, just to run a business to care for people is how I'm thinking about it. That's got to be extremely difficult.
Well, it's very frustrating. The O&P industry decided many years ago they wanted to be appliance manufacturers. They didn't want to be medical professionals. They started to do that now. So you have to have a master degree and 2-year, 1-year residencies to get certified, and you have to have a national certification. But our lobbying body isn't as powerful as like physical therapists. Physical therapists are allowed to. There's a billing code to train somebody how to use a prosthesis. We can't bill for that code. Yet we do that, and it's part of our process. So somebody gets a prosthesis, we give them the basic functions. We've worked with physical therapists, and really we're tight. We're friends. But it's unfair that we can't do some of those initial trainings, in 15-minute increments. Spend an hour with somebody, help them get up and walking, get the basics. And then work with a physical therapist to adjust things as the person grows with their device.
Yeah, that's interesting. And something else I think about when I think about your personal journey and what you're doing now at ANew Life, is there a lot of people I would imagine, and I want to ask you from your personal experience, your professional experience, let's say they have an accident like you did, or maybe some kind of medical condition, they're laying in bed. A lot of people that I interview think that, okay, I had my amputation today, I'll get fitted tomorrow, and by Thursday, beginning of the week, by Thursday, I'll have my prosthetic and I'll start working towards walking again in this example. The prosthetic journey is a journey in itself. How is that from your perspective, both personally and professionally?
So personally, we were both very naive. We were very there really wasn't the educational process wasn't there. Our expectations were wild and often off base. It wasn't until I talked to other amputees or people who'd gone through the process that I started to understand that. Patty Rosbach and the ACA, huge proponents of education. On a professional side, what I found is that we try to manage expectations right off the bat. One of the first things I do is I send every patient caregiver to the Amputee Coalition website to look at their glossary. Let's learn the terms, understand what you're going on. Make sure that you have a notebook when you're talking to your doctors, your physical therapists, and talking to us.
Great
Make
advice.
sure you're making notes. And then the big thing is I say there's 3 major hurdles. The first major hurdle is getting past the injury. All right. So whether it's a stroke or it's amputation, you got to get healed. Okay. The second one is getting a fitting and functional device. You got to have something that fits you, is biomechanically aligned, that works for you. And the third is learning how to use it, and then care for it. So there's virtually every person, those are 3 basic things that have to. Now the times for those can be greatly varied. So like someone with a vascular disease that has lost their leg, it might take them months, if not a year, to heal. So in the meantime, their body's atrophied. They're hard to get up and around. They can develop contractures where one's limb basically gets locked in a position. It's a very painful and tedious process to get people with range of motion. So we're trying to work with them all the way through this process to make sure that they're trying to keep the range of motion, get their strength up, cardiovascular system the best they can. And then in the fitting phase, you have to control edema, what's going on with the body part that's affected. Diet and exercise. Don't smoke cigarettes. Just put them out.
Yeah, don't eat a lot of ham.
Well, don't pick on ham, but
any
things
type
with
of things
salts and things that are going to affect your cardiovascular system.
Yes. We had a patient who's still back on Thanksgiving that had some issues, and we're like, well, why did your diet? What happened? Was it your diet? What changed? Oh, I ate like a whole ham for Thanksgiving.
I can't fit in my leg. I'm all swollen up. And so once, managing these expectations and talking to people about it, I think what it is it helps people go through the process. We might have to remind people a few times.
Sure.
But what it does, our outcomes are excellent. One of the things we do is test sockets. Usually insurance will only pay for 2 test sockets. The anatomy changes very quickly with someone with a lower extremity. The residual limb have edema. It hasn't had any forces on it in like at least weeks, if not months. So what we'll do is we might do a 3rd test socket to get that limb to kind of mature and stabilize before we go to a definitive. Now, the only one that really benefits is the insurance company and the patient. By putting that 3rd one, we're doing it for free. But what we find is the outcomes are so much better. And when they go into that definitive will last them much longer. A lot of our competitors might take a test socket, they'll slide it on and say close enough, make a definitive. And in virtually in 2 or 3 weeks, the leg won't fit anymore. The patient's kind of stuck with it. And if they have a plan that limits how often they can get it, they're pretty much at a loss.
Yeah. I know you were going with that, but I would agree. And I also learned to not eat a whole ham. I don't care how many limbs you have. No eating of whole hams for anyone out there. I want to go to something. This is how I was made aware of you and the great work you're doing. You won an award recently, and I'd like the listeners to understand a little bit more about that award from your perspective. What did that mean to you?
I felt very honored that the board for certification thought me worthy enough to make me Certificate of the Year. When I got into this field, like I said, naively, my goal was to help people out, and we've done that quite a while. And I guess just to be recognized for that, the board for certification has been awesome for us. I guess to make it clear, they help with Medicare compliance for certification, both for facilities, and I'm also a BOC certified prosthetist orthotist. Now they help with regulation, lobbying for regulation. They're also involved with Medicare and the other insurance providers, as well as other certification bodies, to help guide regulation and compliance down the road. We recently had a little bit of an issue with some compliance, and this is before I even knew about the certification, the Certificate of the Year, which was awesome. That we had some issues in our ability to billing was impacted by some regulations. BOC came in, they really stepped in. Kim worked hard with some local and national politicians, and they were able to get that cleared up fairly quickly. But if it wasn't for organizations like BOC, you couldn't really trust who was doing the care for you. Is the facility fly by night? Are they doing insurance fraud? Is the practitioner even qualified to do your care? That's very important. So to kind of the person that made like my 2nd or 3rd leg, they had a certificate, a 1-year certificate in orthotics and prosthetics combined together. Now this is many years ago, and this was the way it was done. The test they took to pass the class, or the 1-year certificate program, was the board exam. That's how you passed. And he had an associate's degree in computer science. So the first couple of years of me getting legs were pretty brutal. The fit wasn't always great. There was a lot of learning curve on it. But for me, knowing that you're going to a BOC certified facility, you're going to be taken care of by someone that is accredited, both facility and as an individual provider, that is going to give you quality care. And you don't have to worry about a fly-by-night place that is doing insurance fraud, and you're going to be taken care of.
Now, thank you for that information. That's very important. Those are the things that people need to look for. And as Kim, you said earlier, advocating for yourself, there's something that you can, thank you for having the learning that I just did. And I'm sure people out listening are going to learn from that as well. So what is next for ANew Life? What are you looking to do as you move forward? And maybe both of you personally.
So we've expanded some of our product lines. We're hoping to do more anaplastology, basically fingers and toes, noses, ears, things like that. I think we're trying to streamline some of our digital strategies and see if we can incorporate them more in prosthetics, but also our what else do you think?
Well, that's a lot.
Oh, that's quite the list right there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's what we're focused on, the silicone. It's kind of during COVID, a lot of the artisans that were doing the silicone stopped because they couldn't see patients. So we've kind of taken that on and seem to be working pretty well with that. Of a learning curve, but I think we have that down.
We're getting there.
Close.
It's always a challenge. And then you're trying to get something that fits to a static device that's fitting to a dynamic person. And so trying to, it's hard to duplicate the original equipment.
Yeah. Boy, a static device on a person, that I've never heard it said like that. That's thank you. I mean, that makes a lot of sense. A dynamic person. Yes, I like that. Well, Kim and Chris, thank you so much for taking the time to be on the We're Not Stumped podcast. Everything you're doing for the community is fantastic. And the knowledge you imparted today means a lot to me. And I know it's going to mean a lot to the listeners. Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks for having us.
That was the We're Not Stumped podcast, hosted by Mike Bolland. If you want to be a guest on the program, reach out to Mike at his email address, mike@mikebolland.com. This podcast is produced by One Hand Man Productions. If you are looking to start your podcast, go to onehandmanproductions.com.